All right, so as you can tell, there's a hinge right here, and we're going to leave that. We're going to take these two Allen heads out, and then we're going to lift the tank up, prop the tank up, and we'll get all the connections off of it from underneath. Did want to point out that I'm working in tight space here, guys. I'm sorry. It's wintertime. I'm in my garage, and I'm trying to stay as far away from my beautiful 65 Mustang as I can. Anyway, I got a tote sitting over here, and I'm gonna, as soon as I get the gas tank off, I'm gonna plug the fittings with my fingers to hold it until I get over here and drop the tank in there, and then we'll soak it with all kinds of stuff. I don't know what yet. Okay, got these loose. Let's pull them out. You have a bolt with a washer, screw with a washer. Make sure you grab both so you don't lose your washer. That one's on there pretty good. There it is. Okay. Now, that tank should lift right up. Okay, let me get my handlebar straight so I can pull it up. Okay. And now you can kind of see with what we got to deal with here, getting this loose in order to get this tank removed, but that's how it hinges up. Let me find some kind of prop to keep this tank up so we can work underneath it. All right, I just got a long handled pry bar and kind of crammed it in there. It works just fine. I'm gonna see if I can get the camera set up so that you can see what I'm doing, but this is a really tight space, so I'm gonna do the best I can. Okay, so what we'll have to do here is take these bolts loose on each side from the hinge, and we will have to take these two fuel lines off, one going into the top here that's got the clamp, and one from the bottom here that does not have a clamp. Now this tank has, I don't know, if I had to guess, I'd say approximately half a tank of fuel, which means as soon as I do this, we're gonna have fuel coming out. So I'm gonna have to act very fast. And I unfortunately don't have the room behind me to set up a camera. I'll try to get one maybe like right in here. But please excuse me if I am unable to capture the rest of this on camera. But you see what we got going on. And then of course we have this sensor here, which I'm assuming is the fuel level sensor. The harness is here, comes down here, and down to right here. So we need to go ahead and disconnect that and get that out of there. Okay, I know you haven't got the best view, but this is the best I can do with the room I have to work with. Okay. We have that disconnected. There's a zip tie right here I'm gonna have to cut loose because it's holding the plug there. And unless I took that sensor out, which I don't want to do yet, that's the only way I'm gonna be able to get. Now, just all I'm gonna do is just cut that zip tie off for now. I can always replace it later if I want to. Feed that harness back up through there along with the clip and make sure it is out of the way. Okay. Now, the two bolts for the hinge on the motorcycle, or I'm sorry, on the fuel tank, is actually back behind those two bolts that I just showed you. So these are the 2 bolts that I thought it was, but actually, if you look down in there, you can just barely see there's 2 more bolts inside there, and that's the ones it is. So I'm gonna have to take these 2 bolts off. That's just a plate. So I'll take that plate off, get that plate out of the way, and then hopefully I should get access to those bolts. Okay, so this is why I do stuff and then post a video so that you can learn from my mistakes. Never worked on one of these before. Apparently, that bracket I was showing you with them 2 bolts underneath there is attached to this plate. So I got the one out here, and as I was taking that, I noticed that the tank was starting to tilt. Sure enough, that whole tank hinge will come out with this plate. So I've got it just hanging on by just a few threads on this 1 bolt here. And as soon as I get everything disconnected, then I'll just finish taking that bolt out and we can remove the tank. I've stopped where I'm at because what I'm gonna do, I know I've got fuel in here, right? So as soon as I unhook the fuel lines underneath the tank, I'm gonna run them down into this tote that I have sitting here. I'm gonna drag that tote right up underneath me right here and drain all the fuel. And then I'll finish popping that bolt out and I'll set the tank right down in that tote right beside me here. Okay, I apologize, but this is gonna be the best view I can get you. I'm gonna start with this lower hose. I know it hadn't been taken off in at least 5 or 6 years, so I'm just gonna gently go back and forth with it and pull out at the same time. Okay, I'm good there. Okay, now we are going to expect fuel to start coming out of here. So we're just going to have to act quickly. Unfortunately, there is a possibility that we're going to get covered in it, but that's just part of working on vehicles, right? So what I'm going to attempt to do is get this loose and then cover the port with my finger to keep it from leaking out. There we go. So as you can see, it's coming off, but what it's doing is splitting the rubber line. It's not just coming off like it should. And see, it should already be leaking fuel, which means that it's definitely, there we go. Okay, I'll show you a close-up of that here in a minute. But yeah, that's gonna have to be replaced. Okay, so that's just a fuel line that pops off. And then we can set this tank down in our tote. That must be like a overflow, must be an overflow line because nothing come out of it. It's definitely been dry for quite a while. It didn't have a clamp over it. So that has got to be just like a drain, an overflow. Okay, anyway, we got the tank out, didn't drip a drop of fuel. I'm not sure that's a good thing because we probably should have, which means we may have more problems than I had expected. Either way, we're gonna move on. Okay, I like to put my bolts back where I took them out of, just so I know where I got them from. Here you can see the battery. We know we're not, oh, that thing's bubbled up. We know we're not expecting that battery to be any good. I'll have to find out. I know this will come out. Probably just have to pop those fuse blocks off of it, and I can get that out, and then the battery. So that's where we're head to next, get the battery out. We'll have to get this intake off of here so that we can get to the carbs, and we'll tear those down and rebuild them. And while we got this thing tore apart like this, we're gonna clean it as absolutely possibly good as we can. We'll go through and check every single one of our spark plug wires, any kind of wiring, any kind of fluid lines, brakes, clutch, you know, just check absolutely everything, because it's been sitting for 6 years. So we're gonna go over it real good.